There we go. What's going on, Star Wars fans?
Hello there.
It is Wednesday. We are here. We're going to talk about Star Wars. So Nick will be here in a little bit. Mike's here with me. Derek will not be here tonight. So I think he's working. So we'll miss him tonight. But we got Mike here now and myself. We got Jacob in the chat. We got the Dave that loves Star Wars. Cool name. 50 Thunder, Darth Plagueis, Steve Jarvo, and Star Wars OG fans. So appreciate you guys all being here. Papa Boz is here in the house. A little bit early for you. I appreciate you jumping on here, Papa Boz. So thanks everybody for being here. We got some cool stuff to get into, huh, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, even though it's this, I guess, off time for Star Wars, this is when all of the leaks come out. And honestly, to me, yes, watching a show is one thing. Watching Maul Shadow Lord, you can't beat that. Watching the Mandalorian Grogu, it's hard to beat Star Wars in a movie theater. But in these off times, the leaks and the rumors, they get me so excited. Like I bounce off the walls when I see some of this stuff. And Ahsoka season 2 leaks are the best for me personally, but Starfighter stuff and even Maul Shadow Lord season 2. And now we just learned that we're getting the Visions 9th Jedi trailer tomorrow. Not the biggest Visions fan, but still that's pretty cool. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and they're keeping it coming, and that's what I like. We, even though we have this little bit of a lull, it's not a 3-year lull. We know something's coming out. Probably, I'm guessing probably by the end of the year, but definitely next year we got some pretty big projects coming out. So, EV30, welcome. Thanks for jumping on.
It could be a lot worse. We could be waiting 16 years for the next Star Wars project.
Been there, done that. So I don't want to do that again. And that's the cool thing is we won't ever have to again. So I think that's pretty neat that they've just continued after the prequels came out. Obviously, we got some new stuff here and we were able to talk about that. And then once Disney bought it, it just continued in everything that we've seen. Our opinion is that it's pretty awesome. And that's the cool thing about this. And they're just continuing that. And that's what I like about, I know it's still a rumor, but you know, this whole thing that they're talking about with 1 movie a year and 2 other projects. I mean, you really can't ask for much more. Yeah, we always could. We could have, 18 of these and 4 movies, but practical, this is perfect. Whether it's an animated series, like, maybe we get Maul, and that might be it next year, which would be fine with me. It could be Maul, Starfighter, and Ahsoka. And we'll talk about that, Ahsoka in a little bit, but that would be perfect. And if they start next year and maybe add another animation, that would be awesome. But that's how they could sort of start next year, is doing those 3 projects, which would probably mean we're going to get Maul towards the end of the year, because I think Ahsoka is going to be the first priority. Then we'll have Celebration, we'll have Starfighter, and then they could probably do Maul if they're going to try to keep along with that rumor that we've heard.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Ahsoka is going to be first. Whatever comes out next year, Ahsoka will be first, just because it was supposed to come out this year and it got postponed. So I think you're right on that. Maul Shadow Lord season 2, I don't know. The more and more I hear about it, it sounds like it's way further along than I thought. But what does that mean? Does that mean it could come out before May the 4th next year? Or does that mean it could come out before 2028? Like it could mean anything, honestly. And they might finish it and be like, okay, well, we need to, wait because there's too much going on at the same time. I remember when they sort of announced Star Wars Celebration coming next year for the 50th anniversary, they talked about 2027 being a year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. And a year long means that we're going to have stuff beyond May, because Starfighter comes out in May. So whether it's Maul Shadow Lord season 2 or something completely different that we just don't know about yet, and that remains to be seen, but a year-long celebration means that we're getting this stuff all the way through till December. And yes, it could be video games. Jedi 3 would be great. Cal Kestis, that would be awesome. But definitely some other shows too. They'll spread it out.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think what's going to happen is we're not going to have things that are going to overlap, and if they do, it's not going to be very very long at all. But I don't think that they're going to have anything to overlap. And Max said he thinks Maul could do 2028. I don't think it'll be that long. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope not, just because, like, with the Bad Batch, it was, I think, like every year or maybe a year and a half in between seasons, and that worked like perfectly. Plus, it was coming in line with, the Mandalorian and Ahsoka and other projects too. But with Maul Shadowlord, it almost seems like they're trying to get through it quickly to an extent. Like, the rumor we talked about a couple weeks ago was about everything being interconnected, but that all the shows, live action and animation, would be in the New Republic era. And obviously, Maul Shadowlord does not take place in that New Republic era. Now we're hearing that there's going to be a time jump in between season 1 and season 2 of Maul Shadowlord. How big a time jump? There's only so much time before we see Maul in Rebels. So what could have been a 5-season show might be dwindled down to a 3-season show because of time jumps in between seasons. And honestly, I'm okay with that. If we get 3 banger seasons of Maul Shadowlord, I can't complain about that. But it might not be as long. Like, we could be done with Maul Shadowlord by 2028. The 3rd season might come out in 2028 and it's over.
Yeah. Well, and I think that would be good. I mean, like you said, we could go on for 5 years, but I think 3 would be perfect. 4 would be a little bit better, but I think they have enough to do, especially if they're going to time jump this time. Are they going to time jump in the 3rd season as well, or are they catching up to this Mandoverse and then going from there? And that's the thing I wonder, if everything that's going on, we're talking about, the saga changing. Have we almost already changed it a little bit with things that are going on? I don't think that we're going to, get Han or Leia or, Luke in live action anymore. Maybe we'll get the tales of, the Jedi Temple, which would be great. But I think it's going to be interesting to see if this is the saga that they're starting to build with all of these characters, going on. And, like the Baylan and the Shin and the Thrawn, whether Herod loses it or not, we'll see. But those characters, Jason, Ezra, Sabine, all these characters are sort of new to the Star Wars universe. And this saga, could be sort of the direction they're going in. And I think Ahsoka could possibly be, like we've talked about before with the lore and Star Wars fans like ourselves and everybody that's on the chat, hopefully that's what's going on in the next future here with the Star Wars Starfighter. But I think Ahsoka is the key to all of these things.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point in sort of this new saga. We might already be in the middle of it. It seems to me like everything we've watched, pretty much everything we've watched, has, at least that Dave Filoni has his hands on, has had a purpose or a reason for future storytelling. Like the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch was a great self-contained 3-season story, but it was really just to set up Project Necromancer and Omega. Or like Maul Shadowlord. Yes, it's going to be a self-contained great story, but it might just be to set up Devon Izara for some future storytelling. And who knows who else could come out of that show alive as well. But I think Ahsoka's the same way. Like, anything that Dave has his hands on is setting up the future, because Ahsoka could be setting up could be obviously Baylan Skoll, but what he's looking for could be Abeloth, could be some other threat that could be the future threat for a post-sequel world. And it almost feels like it has been all connected this entire time, and we just haven't really realized it yet. And now that we're learning about this so-called new saga and the possibility that everything moving forward could be connected, we're not really looking backwards, because it already has. Not everything. Like, Kenobi isn't really connected to much unless Reva shows up again, which I seriously doubt. Obviously, the Acolyte, Andor is pretty self-contained because it goes right into Rogue One, but everything else, it's pretty connected. I mean, all the Mandoverse stuff, obviously, but Bad Batch and Maul and all this stuff is very much connected.
Yeah, and I think that all they're gonna have to do is do something with that time gap, into the sequels and then into Starfighter if we need
Yeah.
to, or, we could have characters in Starfighter that they're going to flash back on, or we're going to get a prequel on their story as well, because this is so
Yeah.
far ahead. And if we're sticking with the Mandoverse, which I'm guessing Dave's going to stick right there in the Mandoverse, so he's going to have to do something else with those characters. And like we've talked about with the books and comics, and maybe help the sequels out for myself and some other people that it wasn't the favorite, but it's getting better. And I think we'll be able to go back and look at those things, and I think they're going to come out and sort of connect those once we get there, or to get there. I mean,
Yeah, let's put it this way. The sequel trilogy, it used to like introduce characters like Hux. Resistance gave us a character, Kaz Ziono, and now you'd be like, "Oh, the sequel trilogy is not good, Resistance is not good, so we're not gonna connect to that." Well, Senator Ziono, which is Kaz's dad, is in Ahsoka season 1. Hux's dad is in Mando season 3. So they're connecting to those characters. So like you just said, if we're doing Starfighter and we get introduced to Starfighter and we learn their names, maybe their parents, or if they're old enough, the characters themselves, we could see a younger version of them in the Mandoverse. We're already seeing that with the sequel trilogy characters. So absolutely, we could see Starfighter connect to some characters that we've maybe already seen, or we could get flashbacks, or not flashbacks, but I guess prequel stories to those characters that appear in the movie. For example, the opening scene of The Force Awakens is that old dude getting sliced down by Kylo Ren. And when you watch that for the first time, you're like, okay, these two have a relationship, but I don't know who this is. And I
right.
guess we still haven't really tapped into Luke Skywalker's Jedi Temple, but that's now we know Lor Santeca, who is like great pals with Luke Skywalker as he builds his Jedi Temple. So there's going to be more of that with Starfighter, with those characters, because they obviously existed before 5 years ago. They're not all 5 years old, so they exist during the time of the sequel trilogy, and that'll be very interesting to see if we get any prequel stories or see familiar faces. There's always the rumor that Rey could show up at the end of that movie, and actually, there was a really funny one of the sort of big scoopers or leakers, whatever you wanna call them, was asked whether Rey would be in Starfighter or not at the end of the movie, and they literally said, "I've heard yes and I've heard no. I have no idea what to think anymore." So that's the latest and greatest when it comes to Rey possibly being in Starfighter.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to set us up. Is I think Ahsoka is going to set us up a little bit more than people are thinking of what's going on, as we
Yeah.
get into Dave's Mandoverse. But to have something like that that could help, if she shows up at the end of Starfighter, that helps us, go on into the next one, but that thing too, are we going to go from the Mandoverse, into Ray's trilogy, and how are they going to keep that, as one saga? That's the hard part too. If they don't connect them,
Yeah, that'll be tough. It has to be though, like you just mentioned, Ahsoka has to set up, the villain. Like, for example, you got the original trilogy with the Emperor. Then the prequels goes back and Vader, obviously, and the prequels goes back and tells you how we got the Emperor and Vader. I think what could happen with this new saga or Simon Kinberg's trilogy or the Rey trilogy or whatever we want to call it, I think you're gonna have a villain, a main villain like the Emperor, be the villain of that film, and then maybe Ahsoka season 2, maybe Dave's movie, possibly an Heir to the Empire trilogy would be nice. That will explain how those villains came to be. And it will also explain how Snoke came to be, but at the same time, it could give us Abeloth or the Grisk, which would be great. But either way, I think the same way that the prequels and the originals have a 19-year gap in between them, you could see the Mandoverse Heir to the Empire possible trilogy with Thrawn have just about a 20 to 25-year gap between that and whatever Simon Kinberg's up to in the post-sequel world. It would be a very similar time jump, just this time instead of Bad Batch, Maul, Solo, and or Rebels and Rogue One being in between trilogies, it will be the sequels in between trilogies.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point because everything that we know right now from all of this stuff, it would fill it in. And
Yeah,
that's what we want. And that's what Dave is, in the since he's been creative director and now become president, he has these little mysteries that he ends up proving. You know,
yeah,
you have Clone Wars with Mortis. You have Ahsoka that's gone into possibly Abeloth. You have Rebels that has well, that's where Rebels was also Mortis as well. But you're bringing some of these things into that. Well, Rebels wasn't, but Clone Wars was, and Rebels you have them, with what's the big thing that Kanan finds? I can't think. I'm having a brain fart. The big animal moose looking thing.
oh yeah,
Bendu.
the Bendu,
Bendu.
yes.
Yes. So you have all these different force wielding things going on, and Dave has a great mysterious way of answering these questions, and it might take another series or another year, but that's the fun part about it. At some point, he's going to answer these questions, and
Yeah,
that's why there's been a lot of buzz, and I don't know if you've seen it, but about Baylan being a bigger character than we're thinking,
yeah.
and I can see that, but I also see him getting mic'd by the end of this movie and him sort of being a sacrificial lamb in this whole if Abeloth comes to be, or
Yeah.
are they going to come up with something different with her? And like we've talked about, is this going to set up Thrawn to be a bigger threat, or are we going to have a bigger threat than Thrawn, and we're still going to have some more in our Star Wars for Ahsoka season 2, but then we go on to possibly something better and more intense, like you said, with the Grisk or some other bad guy coming into this, and we still have to figure out how Exegol was gone in the First Order,
Yeah.
how all that stuff started. So I think we're definitely going to get some of that, which would be really cool, whether it's a live action or an animation for how the First Order started.
I absolutely agree. I think the idea that Baylan, I just don't see him surviving this at all.
Yeah,
However, to your point though, I do think that he doesn't really know what he's looking for, and maybe when he finds it, whoever's calling out to him, let's say it's Abeloth for just ease of talking. Let's say it is Abeloth and she is manipulating him, and he realizes that, like, he's gonna Balin's not a bad guy, like, really not, like, he's told to go kill Ahsoka, and he's like, "No." He's like, "I don't
right.
wanna do that." So, I don't think if he is given the option, he's going to willingly go with Abeloth in this plan to take over the entire galaxy if it means the end of everybody. So, I think he will maybe have a change of heart, I suppose, by the end of season 2 and maybe even sacrifice himself to save the galaxy, which would be nice. Having said that, though, I do think that, like you were just talking about, the different variations of Force users that we're being introduced to, I think Dave Filoni is very much in that world where, in the same sort of, he gets it from George Lucas, obviously, that there is different religions in the real world, the same as there should be different Force users or different Force religions, I suppose, in Star Wars. So on the one hand, let's say you have like Christianity in the real world. Like, let's say that's the Force, that's the Jedi and the Sith. Then you still have Judaism, you still have all these other Muslims, like all these religions in the world. In Star Wars, you have to have that as well. There's not just one. So
Right.
the fact that we just got introduced to in Ahsoka season 1, the fact that the Night Sisters come from a different galaxy, they use the Force differently with the Night Sister magic. Now we have stuff like the Bendu and stuff like you mentioned. Um, and now even with the Chiss having the Skywalkers, these
Yeah.
little girls who can tap into the Force and navigate the galaxy, navigate the chaos, as they say. So the idea that we have different sort of Force religions now in Star Wars makes a lot of sense and could lead to our next big bad, because I seriously doubt after Palpatine somehow returned and was all the Sith, the next villain is not going to be a Sith. There is absolutely no way. So it has to be something else, in a different type of Force user like Abeloth, or who knows what else. Night Sisters, we kind of throw the Night Sisters away. The Night Sisters
Right.
have just returned with an army of them. Where are they in the sequels? What is their real purpose? What's their end goal? Because they're just working for Thrawn as much as it benefits them. When does it stop benefiting them? That'll be interesting.
Yeah, because is he using them just to go out and try to kill everybody and be help with his army? Or like you said, could they possibly be trying to use him as well? Which could definitely be interesting. But I also think, the theory that Baylan, understand that it's the Jedi and the Sith, and then the Jedi and then the Sith. And I think that there's possibly something else there, that he's not out for a war. He's not out to, try to beat these people over here and take my, my world and go conquer this world, or take my army and go conquer this army. He's trying to find some sort of balance. And I think that's where I think he could be a very important character, like the buzz this week was about him. But I also think that he could possibly be that sacrificial lamb as well, and have a big part, but also have a big death as well, to either push forward the Jedi or push forward the bad guys. And I agree with you. I think that we're not going to have some sort of Sith that's going to be the bad guy anymore, because like you said, he's all the Sith. So if he's not around, we need to do something else with that. So we'll see what happens.
I do like the idea that Ahsoka is obviously the daughter. That's been pretty well documented. Anakin is supposed to be the father. I would like the idea that maybe Baylan Skoll could be the son, and the three of them, well, Anakin's already dead, but Ahsoka and Baylan don't have to die. They just more so take up the mantle, and maybe Sabine and Huge Wang, they go home. But the other three, they stay to maybe protect the galaxy from Abeloth or whatever. It would be really crazy if Ahsoka and Baylan both didn't die, but instead they just took up the mantle of the new Mortis gods. First of all, it would be really cool to see Sabine go home and try to explain that. That would be hilarious. Or even, Hu Yang try to explain that too. But it would make a lot of sense, because I don't think we're going to see Ahsoka or Baylan ever again after Ahsoka season 2. But they don't have to die in order for that to work,
No, I agree with you. I think that would be perfect. And that way, like we said, we don't see them in the original trilogy. We don't see them in any more things, as far as we know. I mean, there could be some sort of twist again, but that would be a perfect ending to, maybe the two of them control Abeloth together and stay on Peridia. And then, everybody else goes home. As much as I hate to say it, I don't know if now you got me saying that Huge Wang is going to be, if he's going to make it.
Whoa, Ron, what are you saying? Oh my God, did you guys hear that, chat? What did he just say? What was that? Oh my God, did you mean Hu Yang?
Yes,
holy crap!
Sorry.
Whoa! Oh my God! Whoa!
Mm-hmm. Hey, at least I didn't say the F word this time. So, but yeah,
that was crazy.
He's gonna get. He's not gonna make it. I don't think. As much as I like him, as much as he's gonna be the good General Grievous with his 4 lightsabers. But and he's done his time. I mean, what, 2,500 years old?
25,000, yeah.
25,000. Oh shit. Okay, so 1,000. So yeah, that could be a good sacrifice as well, to stay. But he could also help Sabine get home. I don't think that Sabine's getting home on her own, and we forgot about Shin too. Something's going to happen with Shin as well.
Yeah, she's the biggest mystery to me.
Yeah,
I don't understand it. Why would you introduce a character that's got the white hair, that barely blinks, that is weird and creepy, and not have her be the Abeloth? Like, that's the only end game for that character right now that I can see. And maybe they throw a big old twisteroo our way, but like you put the two pictures next to each other of Abeloth and Shin, and it's like they're the exact same. It has to be on purpose.
yeah. Well, and her and Baylan coming to this together, that could also be a thing where Abeloth is calling to Baylan, and once he gets there, she's like, "Hey, wait a minute, I can't use your mortal male body. I need somebody else." And
Yeah.
he gets Shin to stop by, and all of a sudden she gets possessed. But
Yeah.
and that's going to be the biggest setup, I think, for all of it. And like we had talked about a little bit before coming on here, I think that is sort of going to set us up for everything else that's coming.
Yeah.
This and that's why they've sort of pushed it back. We don't have an official, we're still doing production, and I know that's been a lot of the rumors and stuff out of here. And as far as I know, there's no official word that says, well, this is why we're getting pushed back. It's just getting pushed back from Rosario Dawson announcing it and saying, hey, it's going to be delayed. I think they're pushing it back for a better timeline. I think that once we get in here, Dave's got his other stuff going on, whether they're going to release a new Tales series or something else in between, which a Tales series would be the best bet, I think, between now and the end of the year before we get Ahsoka again. So I think that would be interesting. But I think, for my opinion, is they moved it back because they wanted to give us a little more time, or Dave needed a little bit more time to either introduce something or save 6 or 8 months to get whatever else they're getting done, and possibly maybe we'll get an announcement during D23.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Which is next month now.
I know, yeah. We're talking, like 40 days or 45 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're gonna have, somebody mentioned it earlier in the chat though, like, we're talking Ahsoka season 2, Maul season 2, and Starfighter, because that's all we know about. Like, beyond that, beyond 2027, we don't know anything else. So either D23 or Star Wars Celebration, or both, are going to have to give us a whole new slate of announcements. I could see it being like early days Marvel, where Kevin Feige would come up on stage and on the screen would be like the next 15 projects from the MCU, or maybe not 15, but next phase of projects from the MCU. We might get that with Dave Filoni coming on stage at Star Wars Celebration, giving us the next slate of Star Wars projects, because as of right now, there is pretty much nothing that we know of concrete beyond 2027.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think you're exactly right for Star Wars Celebration. I think we'll get a handful of stuff, but I think that we'll get possibly those trailers for Ahsoka and or Starfighter. But I also think we'll get some sort of announcement, I would guess. But yeah, I think in 2028 coming out, Dave's going to come out, announce a bunch of things. And I think that when he comes out to do that, I think that now that everything's going on with social media, with the Kathleen Kennedy and all the backlash and things like that, I don't think that they're going to continue to do what they've been doing, unfortunately, and say, oh, okay, Mike's got a movie coming out, and then that gets canceled, and Nick's got a movie that's coming out, and that one gets canceled. Oh, we're going to do this series, and that one gets canceled. I don't think that they're going to do that. I don't think Dave's going to get up there and say, hey, we got a Kenobi season 2 coming out, and things like that, and then cancel them. I think that he's going to come out, and we're going to find out what's going on in 27 and 28 and possibly even 29. Because at the end of Star Wars Celebration, we're going to find out when the next celebration is, and it's usually 2 years from that, depending on if they're going to stay in the U.S. or not.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't think if Dave Filoni goes up on stage and shows a whole slate for what's coming next, it's not going to be 1,000 projects and half of them just never come to fruition. It'll be stuff that's already in the works. For example, last year at Star Wars Celebration, they announced Maul Shadowlord, which had been in the works for over a year before it was announced. when they announced Starfighter, it already had a release date. I think even when they announced The Mandalorian and Grogu, it already had a release date. So it's not like they're announcing projects nowadays that are 10 years in advance and may never happen. They're announcing things with release dates or announcing things after they've already been recorded in a development for over a year. So whatever is announced at Star Wars Celebration next year, it will be like, oh yeah, this is going to be coming next year or this year, or on if it's a movie, then next December or whatever it is. It'll have a release date or it will have some sort of timeline, because they're the days of canceling announced projects seem to be over. I'm sure every once in a while it will happen because that's just how it works, but for the most part, at least in recent past, they've only announced things that either have release dates or have already been in production for a long, long time.
Right. Yeah. Or we're going to start filming next week.
Yeah.
So again, there's a timeline there that so they can say that, and then all of a sudden, and I think that helps us all as well. Yeah. Where we sort of settle down, and then we also start doing predictions, and we start doing all the other things that come along with that. Especially on our channels, being content creators, we're going to talk about that and hype it up for more people and things like that. So welcome, Jan and Holly. Thanks, guys, for jumping in here. So what are your guys' thoughts about Ahsoka connecting things or Starfighter? What's going on with Starfighter in reference to connecting the sagas? Do you guys think that this is all going to be connected somehow, and this is like the new saga that Dave is sort of putting together and going to somehow bring these movies together? Or do you guys think that this is something that's going to be separate, and maybe in 2028 we'll start the three different, the movie and the two other projects? So be interested to hear what you guys have to say. I'd love to do a second season of Acolyte, but that would be, and that's the hard part too, is you bring the Acolyte or any of those characters, it's going to be hard to bring them into this saga.
Oh yeah, it's completely unconnected. However, I mean, it's unconnected to what's the next saga for sure, but it is connected to the Knights of Ren. So somehow they made a project that was 100 years before the prequels that connects to the sequels, which are 100 and 200-ish years later, which is pretty cool. I mean, if and when we get the Dawn of the Jedi movie that James Mangold's working on, like as much as that's going to be its own thing, because it's 25,000 years before everything, it's still going to have locations like Titan that we saw in The Mandalorian, or Octu like we saw in the sequel trilogy, but it's going to look different because it's going to be sort of at its peak. And I honestly think that's really, really cool. I like when things like that happen. For example, like seeing the Lars homestead when it's in the prequel trilogy versus the original trilogy, and then of course seeing it again in the sequels at the end with when Rey goes there to bury the lightsabers. But that stuff is really cool to me, seeing locations when they look very, very different. So it would be like seeing these old temples like on Jeddah in Rogue One, or even on Lothal, like seeing those temples being built or who built them, the sacred texts and who wrote them, like getting to see all that. It's 25,000 years apart, but it's still very much connected because it's the same galaxy. So yeah,
very
it's
true.
all connected.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part of it that I think that's cool. They can say that it's going to be this and they're all going to be connected, but technically it all is. I mean, everything that we've got before and after the original, that's the cool thing about it. And that's what I like about, like you were saying, with the perspectives of the Lars home, but the perspectives of Order 66, the different ways we've seen Order 66 in the different series and the different characters that have explained it and gone through it, and to see those different perspectives, I think is really cool. And those are the cool Easter eggs that I enjoyed, that brings us back to even with that, with Rey going there at the end, to the to their hut there on Tatooine. It was just such a cool thing to bring it all to fruition, like that full circle back to that. And hopefully there's some connection, and I'm looking forward to this book with Leia and Rey to try to make a little bit more of a connection, because it's still hard for me. Again, I love it all, but it's still hard for me to have her say that that's her last name without some sort of story behind it. So I think that I think maybe we'll get it in this book, maybe we won't, but at some point I think that will come to fruition. And I also think the same with why Luke's a hermit and what's going on with that whole story, because I think a lot of people want to know what's going on with that. And like we just said, Dave has such a mysterious way to bring these things around and answer these questions. So hopefully that'll happen sometime soon.
Yeah, the reason I sort of get the feeling that the sequels in a few years' time will be looked upon at least a little bit more generously by Star Wars fans is because when you look at just the concept of what we're talking about, and you take just the idea of it all, and if that idea is good, then you're like, okay, we got something. And from what you just said, Rey doesn't really deserve the Skywalker name, or at least you don't think she does at this point. If you just take the idea, having zero idea of what the sequel trilogy is going to be, but you take the premise that the main character of the sequel trilogy is going to be, well, a Palpatine, which is crazy, but the main character is going to be a Palpatine, and by the end of the trilogy, she's going to take the Skywalker name because she trained with Luke and Leia, and sort of falls in love with with Leia and Han's son. So she's been completely trained by a Skywalker, or both Skywalkers, and she obviously can't keep the Palpatine name because she overcomes that and picks the light side instead of the dark side. That just as a concept, that as a story arc for a character in the sequel trilogy sounds so unbelievably cool. And I guess it's just the execution of it. I don't think it was done to perfection. And I think we need stuff like this legacy book to help that. Because if you have this book, which is probably going to be 300, 400 pages of Leia and Rey training for the entire year between episode 8 and 9, where they go and reforge the Skywalker lightsaber together, where they go off and train for God knows how long. And that adds so much more depth to their relationship, because in Rise, it doesn't seem like they have much of a relationship beforehand. It adds so much more depth to the character of Rey and her connection to the Skywalker bloodline, because she does train with Luke, she does train with Leia, and she does, have feelings for Ben Solo. But just, I know it's going to be fine, because that concept, that idea of a Palpatine granddaughter sort of saying no to the dark side and defeating her grandfather after he comes back from the dead, and training with both Skywalkers to do so, to be powerful enough to take him down. That sounds so freaking cool. So,
yeah. Well, and that's it. I'm very hopeful for sort of bringing me around to that. And again, it's not that I didn't like it. It just wasn't my favorite. How they ended that, but I still think there's a bigger story behind it. And I think we will get those answers as we go along, which will be good.
Yeah, it's like getting it's like for the original trilogy, getting the addition of Rebels, Andor, and Rogue One. Nobody's going to sit here and complain about 3 of the greatest Star Wars projects being added to the original trilogy, or for the prequel trilogy. No one's going to sit here and complain about the 7 seasons of the Clone Wars that we got. So if you're taking that same logic with the sequel trilogy, then nobody's going to, or hopefully it's going to elevate the projects or the movies if we get projects in between movies, or before the movies, or after the movies.
Yeah. And that'll sort of be somewhat of the determining factor to see what's going to be happening in these, and give us those answers.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that stinks about waiting. It's just like, do we try to, and all the predictions that we've come up with, some good, some bad, some come true, a lot of them don't. And that's the cool thing I think about Disney and Dave, where they're able to keep these secrets like that. And even talking with when we talked to Vanessa or even with Chris Bartlett, they don't know either. They're sort of in the, I guess, sort of in the dark until they sort of get that script or sort of figure out what's going on, or possibly different names are given to characters, and then all of a sudden when they come in to read for it, all of a sudden Luke Skywalker shows up and the end of Mandalorian and things like that. So those are the cool things that keep us guessing and keep us interested in these things as well, but also being able to try to predict what's going on and who we think's gonna get mic'd, or who's gonna be the next bad guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Any Starfighter news or leaks this week?
Well, we did have the Amy Adams talking about her character, where she said that I guess her character is not as big a role. Nick, how we doing?
How we doing?
We're doing
Good.
great.
How are you?
Don't stop on my account. Continue.
Well, we just did. So, well, well, so we were just about to start the Starfighter talk. We talked a lot of Ahsoka season 2, and we talked a lot of everything, but Starfighter. Yeah, so the Amy Adams stuff, she sort of confirmed role is a small one in this movie, and it's likely that she, dies off very early on in the film. From the leaks, we learned that she's supposed to be a Force user who has a lightsaber, who hands her lightsaber to her son and tells him to go find his uncle, which is played by Ryan Gosling. So those leaks are kind of being solidified by what Amy Adams is saying, by saying, she's a huge Star Wars fan. She loved being on the set. She went to the droid and creature shop and all that, but her role is very small in this movie.
Yeah, well, but I also think that with them coming out with that Mara Jade lightsaber, it's just too convenient for them to do that.
So.
And I think, yeah, and like we're talking about, they can go back and forth. We got a bunch of time here. If you introduce her now, look what we've done with Maul and Boba Fett, and you have the little parts that they have, and now it's huge. And they have their own series. They have, so if we introduce Mara Jade and people are like, wait, who is this? And what's the story? Because I think we'll get a little bit of a story, just sort of maybe a little bit of her character or what's going on, whether she is Mara Jade or not. We're going to have to find out something. And then they can go back and sort of build on that character, which would be pretty awesome.
It's, I guess, in a way, maybe not to this extreme extent, but it's in a way like Alec Guinness Obi-Wan in A New Hope, because he's more so a main character in that movie, but he dies in the first film, and then you get a prequel trilogy that explains Obi-Wan in his prime and through his years as a Jedi. So we might get the end of Mara Jade's story first, and then go back and get some prequel stories along with it.
What do you got to
or
say,
maybe
Nick?
Not.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, I think. Sorry, I'm kind of sitting weird in the chair. I kind of assumed if the leak was true. Can you guys hear me? By the way,
It's a little low, but
here we go.
Right.
I kind of assumed if the leak was true, that would make sense to me that she kind of pops in and out. I think we compared the possibilities to Laura Santeca, played by Max von Sydow. We were all speculating oh my God, who's he going to be? Is he a great actor? And he's a very cool character, but just sort of is a plot device to get us going on the story.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do that. My personal belief, I don't think they would do that for a character like Mara Jade if they were bringing her back. I don't think.
Yeah.
And best case scenario in my mind, they would do it and only us freaks would know. Because if she hands that lightsaber off, you'd be like, wait a second. And there'd be nothing. It's just out there forever. And so I don't see the Mara Jade thing happening, just because I think if they're going to go that route, I don't think they're going to start it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the idea that she is Mara Jade, but they don't say it, and it's
Right.
just the lightsaber that you recognize as Mara's, and that's the only thing that tells you that that's Mara Jade. Like, that would be really, really cool. Like, nothing. Or maybe like in the credits, it says Amy Adams plays Mara Jade, but you have to get to the credits to get to that point. But when you watch the movie, the only thing that tells you would be the lightsaber. That would be really cool because, like you just said, it would only be the hardcore fans, or really hardcore fans, honestly, because even some fans who've watched everything still don't know who Mara Jade is.
Right.
So it would just be the really hardcore fans just going, "Oh my God, that's Mara Jade's lightsaber," and they'd be poking each other next to them in the movie theaters, and they'd be telling their parents, and they'd be like, "Who the hell's Mara Jade?" And they'd be like, "Well, I'll tell you later," and then it would be the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It would get you talking about it on the way home, and that's the goal.
Yeah, I think so the way I foresee it with like casual fans or even like fans who've seen a lot who don't know who she is, that sort of thing. I could see some of the experience of Starfighter if you have this like Jedi-esque person and a kid, and it's post the saga that we know, already sort of like maybe coming up with reasons. Who is that? Is this someone I know's son? Like I think that's already going to happen. I just don't foresee it being the way, if they're ever going to do the Mara Jade thing, I don't foresee them like killing her immediately and then going back. I think it would be like I think if they did that story, it would be one that they actually do in a linear way, because I think one of the weakness, if there are no real weaknesses in Maul Shadowlord, but if you were to say one, it's that you already know how it ends up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you already know where he ends, how it, where it all results. So, which is what made Rebels like so gripping when he was in that, because you have no idea. And I think that bringing in Mara Jade is one of those moves that's like a huge swing, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
No, you're right. If you start with the end of her story, then you go back, then you already know where her story ends, and they've done that before with characters like Obi-Wan and Anakin. But if you're comparing her to somebody like Ahsoka, the whole time you're watching Clone Wars, Ahsoka's not in Revenge of the Sith, so you're like, okay, she could die at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that with Mara Jade and kill her off as Amy Adams in Starfighter, then any other story you get with her, the stakes just aren't there.
Right.
So,
and I think like the Obi-Wan and Anakin thing is slightly different because, I honestly do not believe that George knew he was going to make 6 more, I think it became a thing that kind of had to be elaborated on, which is awesome. But like with her, I don't think they would, I think if they're going to bring Mara Jade in, it's going to be like big and be for like a big project that is not in Starfighter time. Like the meat of the Mara Jade thing would be prior. However, I also like, this is not an anti-Mara Jade speech or anything, but I do think depending on like what Starfighter is, like as far as purpose goes, like it seems like it's the vehicle to a new saga, right? Like, or to a new time. It might be best for that to be like very new, like to be an introduction and not be super like heavy on, lore stuff, and more so like introduce what's going on, and like having a great actress play our bridge character that starts it off is a great way. Max von Sydow, Oscar Isaac, that sort of thing. But
yeah, I agree. I think having a very famous, familiar face on screen is going to be quite helpful. I think it might get a little bit of backlash. It's hard to, compare anything to the backlash that the Acolyte got, but a portion of the Acolyte backlash was people saying, oh, it's so cool to see Carrie-Anne Moss in Star Wars, and then she dies in the opening scene.
mm-hmm.
The only difference there being she is in 2 more episodes after that. They're just flashbacks, but there was a disappointment because people were like, "Oh my god, we get to see her in Star Wars," and then she dies in the opening scene. But I don't know if that'll happen with Amy Adams. I have no idea. The other thing too, and I guess because Starfighter is 5 years after the sequels, if you look at the Star Wars galaxy, there's plenty of 5-year arcs, I suppose, that are very crazy. I mean, from Revenge of the Sith to 5 years after Revenge of the Sith is a pretty big difference. Or even like Andor season 2 spans 5 years. Both seasons span 5 years.
Yeah.
So episode 1 of Andor till the final episode of Andor, very big 5-year time jump. Especially for like Yavin. Yavin starts out as this, just two groups fighting in the woods, and then it's the whole rebel base. But to that point, we're talking about a Force user with a lightsaber, 2 actually with Mia Goth, and 5 years after the sequel trilogy, when seemingly all the Force users were gone except for Rey and Palpatine at that final moment. So who are these people and where do they come from? 5 years is a long time, but if they had training their whole lives, well, where did they come from? That's sort of the question.
Yeah, well, and it could be me just being hopeful that Mara Jade would show up, but I think it's interesting that they bring out the lightsaber, first of all. But then also you have, and I know we'll probably get some feedback or some backlash on this, but you have Plagueis, and I know we still sort of know his end story, but, I don't know how many people watched that didn't know who he was. Probably a lot, that aren't super fans and see this guy sort of creepy looking around the corner, and then, have to ask somebody like us to go, oh, who is that guy? And then we can give them an explanation for it. But, what was that, 5 seconds? And we're all freaking out, when that comes up, but it's I think it's different when we have, something else. But yeah, I mean, when Plagueis, came on the screen,
yeah, no,
it was
you're right, though, because it's the same argument though that I guess Nick was just making with Mara Jade. Like most people won't recognize that character if that's the case, but not many people recognize Plagueis. The only place a normie fan would have known the name is from Revenge of the Sith, but there's no face to that name, and they don't even say his name in the show. In the Acolyte, they're not like, oh my god, it's Darth Plagueis in a cave. They just show a guy in a cave. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Probably a lot of people watching the Acolyte did not know who that was at the time.
Yeah, and that'll be the interesting thing if they do that, and that's what I'm sort of wondering, why they're going to bring a pretty big named actress in, give her a little spot, and then not build on that character. But
yeah,
and also like somebody else said too, same thing was like, how many people do know who Mara Jade is?
Well, the thing with that too is like, you're gonna have a lot of new characters in this movie. So I saw somebody saying too, like, don't get your hopes up that it's Mara Jade, because then you'll be let down when it's not. Well, first of all, it could be, but even if it's not, like, that's really the only one thing that we have to latch onto. Because if this is all new characters, the only thing that we really have is that Amy Adams is the perfect age to play a character like Mara Jade. She looks like Mara Jade, and the opportunity that her child is Luke's as well makes things so much more interesting. So it's not that I'm fully convinced that will happen, but it's one of the only things or theories that we can kind of talk about until we get a teaser trailer, until we get names of characters, until we get something else of substance around Starfighter. Because other than the fact that they wield the Force and wield the lightsaber, Mia Goth and Amy Adams characters, and Matt Smith is maybe playing a infamous warlord, we don't know much about this movie.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what goes on with this, and I think that's what we're going to have to speculate, and we're going to do all these predictions as we get a trailer. And once we get a trailer that comes out, maybe that'll help us along a little bit. But
100%.
I don't think, and maybe it will, but I don't think that they're going to show that part of it, because you're going to possibly confuse more normie fans than make people like us go, oh my gosh, this is going to be awesome. I think that if that gets shown in the trailer, you're going to confuse a little bit. You're going to confuse some people. I mean, maybe as Amy Allen, but we're not going to see what that character is going to be. And again, with everybody else that's in this movie, with the big stars, it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the screen and figure out how we're going to bring all of this together, and if it is Mara Jade. So but yeah, I mean, it's 50-50 at this point, but my thing is, why are you bringing her lightsaber to Galaxy's Edge to sell? Because if there's not a lot of people that know who she is, maybe, us crazy fans went and bought it. Oh my gosh, this is great. And okay, whatever, you sold out of it, but you made it there. So now if you build this character up and people like her, they're going to go buy her lightsaber. You're going to get people that are going to go buy Devin's lightsaber now because she's a big character on Maul.
And I could see whether whoever Amy Adams ends up being, I could see like these trailers, the trailer magic that they love, being a little bit of her like with a lightsaber or whatever. And if that leak is true, in true Star Wars trailer fashion, like that's whatever action she has in the first, segment of the movie. And if that leak is true and she's out and then we go on to the real movie, I think that'd be a great hook. Amy Adams is a Jedi wondering who she is in the trailer. Yeah. And then, if that leak's true, we move on from it. I don't know like how do I put this? Like this kid is like 15, right?
I think he's like 12 or maybe even younger.
Is in real life, but he's like
no, I think he was 12 playing 12.
Okay. So it'd be interesting of like in that story, no matter who she is, like what are they doing that puts him in like so much danger at that? Like just like at this point in the galaxy, we have no idea what's going on because 5 years is a lot of time and everything just got sort of like reshuffled. So I think she's obviously part of whatever they're chasing this kid for, in which case I think that would make her a minor character to say the least. So I think no matter who she is, we're going to get more content, whether she's new Amy Adams character or Mara Jade. If it's Mara Jade, you obviously have to basically have a whole, runway of projects after that. But no matter who she is, there will be more content of some kind to explain that situation, because despite not having anything on the movie, we know that she's important enough to have a kid that's important enough to the bad guys, Yeah. So I think no matter what, we're going to get more of her character, whoever it is,
Yeah, that is one of the biggest questions too, is why do they want this kid? And it at this point makes no sense. I do hope when we get this teaser trailer again, hopefully at D23, that it does give us a little bit of plot, like at least something. And I'm sure it will, obviously, but it's going to mostly focus, I assume, on this kid and Ryan Gosling's characters. I wonder if they must give us lightsabers just to, get people hyped up, or at least a tease to lightsabers. Either way. Yeah. Why are the bad guys hunting down? Why is Amy Adams dying in the opening scene? Like why is that happening? And then why are they hunting down her kid? Like that's just as big a question as anything going into this movie.
Well, and that's it, because you have, you come off of sort of Kenobi, where you have everybody hunting the Jedi, and they're pretty much extinct, but you still have a handful of them, and then we're 30 years now past that,
probably a little more.
Yeah,
probably pushing 40
after Order 66.
Yeah.
At least 40.
Yeah. So
probably closer to 60 actually, because it's 20 years to the originals, 30 years to to the sequels, it's at least 50, closer to 60.
Yeah. How old is Luke when he dies?
That make him like 50?
In his 50s, probably, yeah.
I think. Because he's what do you think he is? Like 19? Is it 19 BBY is the or sorry, is when he's born? BBY is like 19.
Yeah.
And sequels are like 30 years after Return of the Jedi ish.
Yeah, so he's probably in his mid 50s when he dies.
Okay, so then that would make Amy Adams or her character, if she's Mara Jade, what, 40, 45, because she was younger than him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, she'd probably be in her like close to her 50s, or maybe around 50, I would assume.
Yeah, he looked. See, I think he looked older than in his 50, but I mean, he'd been.
Well, I think Mark Hamill was older, and Amy Adams is 51. Here we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
They, I want to say, if anyone in the chat can help out with this, I feel like they made the timeline the like exact number of years that it had been since Return of the Jedi to like in real life, like since they filmed, to like justify the age gaps. You know what I mean? I think that was at least on the table. I don't know if that's what they end up doing with the timeline, but
because Return of the Jedi is obviously 83, and then Force Awakens was 15, so 32 years, and it's about 30 years. So yeah, that's pretty close.
Yeah, so it definitely could make that. That definitely could make sense at that point. But it'll be interesting to see what we get, because, and that's the thing too, is you have these two main characters, and then you have the bad guys, but in a lot of these other movies, you have a few more people that are in that, at least 4 to 5 people that are main characters in that. But, well, I guess except for Mandalorian and Grogu, so that's 2 characters as well. So, all right, forget it. That throws that theory out.
Well, and to play advocate for the excitement of the movie, like, I think it's also interesting. We really don't know enough about the lead in the movie. Like Ryan Gosling, huge actor, being in a Star Wars movie. We just know he's a washed up pilot who's got issues. But like, there's probably a lot more that's interesting about him that we'll have to speculate on for a year. And they're not going to give him the Poe Dameron part. Not that I don't love me some Poe Dameron, but I don't think he's just going to be Mr. Flyboy. I think there's going to be some depth there and some lore there to kind of wrap up his significance. But
I think he'll be very.
Just real quick, do you guys think that he's a former Imperial pilot or a New Order or Rebel pilot? Or not New Order, but you know what
First
I mean.
Order. I like the idea. What?
That's a great band, New Order.
New Order. No, I like the idea that he could have been a First Order pilot, because the First Order pilots and troopers were sort of stolen at a very young age, so they were forced into that. Like Finn. Finn's a really cool character, and it's a cool concept because he sort of wakes up to the idea that these are the bad guys. And maybe Ryan Gosling is being haunted by what he did because he was the bad guy and he didn't realize it until it was too late. I do like that concept. However, I kind of see him as sort of like Jod in Skeleton Crew, and maybe more of a good guy than Jod, because Jod was definitely a bad guy, but sort of like a Jod type character, where he's like a Han Solo type character, kind of too. But we actually haven't even brought that up either. First Order, Republic, New Republic, Resistance, whatever you want to call it. What if he's just Han Solo? Like, he's Han Solo before the originals. He's not on any side. He's just a pilot.
Right.
And I've imagined, like, anything they do post sequels, I think you could reasonably like work into what everybody's thinking about, like the Battle of Exegol being a huge event, because we know how many. What's the count? Does Wikipedia have a count of how many people flew to Exegol? To do that, like that's like a D-Day moment, like for all the marbles. And I think it'd
And
be interesting.
Palpatine,
Yeah,
and Palpatine called out to the entire galaxy and said he was back.
and proclaimed that he's a Sith, that it's the Sith, like the biggest reveal for probably the whole galaxy about him ever, confirming maybe all the conspiracy theories and all that kind of junk, and blowing up a planet. Anyway, that being such a huge event, I think it'd be interesting to get someone's perspective that isn't just a Resistance pilot, because obviously the Resistance was there, or whoever's adjacent to it. But like what appears to be a freaking million people show up to say, let's lay the hammer down. And that could be anybody. And if Ryan Gosling is like a Han Solo type, or he's in some kind of other fleet in the galaxy who's like, we're going to take matters into our own hands, and they go, Exegol would have been freaking scary, because you're facing down a bunch of planet-killing ships, and then some freak shoots a bunch of lightning up that almost kills everybody in one instant. Like, it could be a pretty traumatic experience.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big like canon event for the galaxy that would kind of define how the whole galaxy's built after it, like who went and who didn't. And I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see, like, was he there? Is that what kind of pilot he was? Is he, and where did he come from? But for that reason, like, I don't know if he'd be making it out if he was a Final Order,
Yeah, well, I like the idea too that like he could be playing a First Order pilot, which would be really, really cool. And the idea that he's now come around to it, like Finn, realizing that was the bad thing. But to have Ryan Gosling's character now interact with somebody like Poe Dameron, who was a Resistance pilot and he was a First Order pilot, and now the two are, I guess, like, both good guys now, but they have that like history together. That would be a really cool interaction to have. Him and Finn too, because Finn was also with the First Order. That would be a great sort of interaction to have too. It would make his character way more interesting. And yes, the Battle of Exegol being this big event, it's like when you're talking about the legacy of Luke Skywalker in the sequels. Now that's still 30 years beyond that, but still, or The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian, one of the opening scenes when he goes to Tatooine is a bunch of stormtrooper helmets on spikes, like their heads are on spikes, and that pretty much tells you that the Empire's gone and that big event happened. And Battle of Jakku in the Force Awakens, like these things are talked about. Order 66, I guess it was Empire Day, but still those things are talked about forever. And the Battle of Exegol is definitely one of those things too.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a little bit more about Exegol too, which will be fun, and just to sort of see how this whole thing has just gone on and what's going on with that, and give a little bit more, because it's being primed at this point, isn't it?
What is
Exegol and the whole, or not the whole First Order is starting to form at this point
in the Mandoverse. Absolutely. I mean, we've already seen Project Necromancer get mentioned. You have Hux's dad there. Starkiller Base is already in construction, and it has been for a long time. It is in construction, I think, even back in Jedi Survivor, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
So it's just
Battle of Exegol is one of the most pathetic, embarrassing space battles of all cinema. That's a crazy take right there. See, I do like these Keep 5 Cut 5 type things, and one of them was Keep 5 Cut 5 Star Wars battles. And one of the battles I kept was the Battle of Exegol, and I got so much crap for it. You're talking about in terms of stakes, in terms of, importance to the entire galaxy. We just got finished talking about that. It is like the battle. Like, if you're talking about one battle that's the most important and has the highest stakes of any battle in Star Wars, it's the Battle of Exegol. It's all planet-killing Star Destroyers and Palpatine. I think it's got to be a keep. I got a lot of crap for that, but I stuck to my guns.
It's also a game where you like don't know what's coming next, obviously. So like if it's big enough, you have to keep it, right? Like,
it was the first one. It was
first one. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. But I did cut Hoth, and people were really upset about that.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that one yet, I don't think. But yeah, if
And
you
I
guys
still stand by my cutting Hoth too, because it's just the AT walkers. It's just
true, but it was pretty significant for us back then.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, if you guys
not
haven't
a bad
seen,
battle.
no, if you guys haven't seen some of the things that Mike's done on his show over there, the verses and the pick one or pick 10 Jedi, and
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. It's fun to go along, and we're very similar, obviously, in what we picked, but there was a couple, I forget which one it was. I think it was something I was watching today, and I was like, ooh, no, I wouldn't have made that pick. But that's the fun part about it, is seeing what other people do. And you know what? I didn't text him and text him and say, hey, you're an asshole for saying that. Like, okay, this is cool. Everybody's got their own opinion. So
Ron just has a burner account that just trashes me online.
That's right.
Ron is rusty.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm rusty.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no more rusty.
Well, I just posted one today that was blind ranking lightsaber colors, and I put yellow as my number one. So I'm sure I'll get a lot of crap for that.
Wow.
Yeah, you probably will, but it is a cool one.
Yeah,
it's
very opinion. As all things are, they're very opinion based. Like, it's my opinion.
Yeah, well, and that's just it. 90% of the people that aren't fans like us, it's like, okay, blue and green and red, and then when Mace came along, it was okay. Now you got a purple one, but the white ones or the yellow ones, and so that. And I think there's even an orange one, isn't there? Doesn't somebody have an orange one?
Baylan Skoll. We were just talking
about
it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think back in the day, Plo Koon had one.
Yeah, well, Plo Koon.
Clone Wars.
Okay.
Plo Koon has had a bunch of different colors.
Yeah, and he used Force Lightning, and Adigalia had a pink reddish one.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Like in Phantom Menace time, when they were like, screw it, Jedi are cool. Some of those comics too have all of them with their lightsabers on, and Yoda has a yellow one. Some of them are red. There's some oranges. They were kind of all over the map. And I think George specifically was just like, nah, dude, blue or green, and maybe Sam Jackson gets a cool one.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Plo Koon having the yellow is great. Obviously, Temple Guard yellow, Rey's yellow lightsaber is really cool at the end of Rise. And then I think somebody is it Yord that has a yellow one in the Acolyte? Somebody has one in the Acolyte.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Yord gets his neck snapped by Chimere. It's like the coolest thing ever.
And Jackie gets stabbed 3 times, and yes, I mean, we're not going to get into it, but what a great series that was too. It really was.
What a great show! What a great show.
Yeah.
Canceled.
Yeah. Well, and that's the sad part, I think, because that's where I'm going when they're talking about, okay, we're going to have a new saga, we're going to have these things all combining and intertwining with one saga, where we might not get any of that. I mean, I know we know the answers, the end game of Plagueis, but it would have been great to see that sort of play out a little bit, even with the whole Chimere thing, and see what would have happened between the two of them, or if there was a young Palpatine in there. And maybe we'll get something like that in the future, but right now I don't see anything like that happening. I think we're just going to stick with what we got with these 3 projects that we know about, and that's it. And that'll be interesting. If they, do you think they'll announce something new for D23, or they're just going to drop okay, here's the Starfighter trailer, or here's the Ahsoka trailer, and maybe a release date for Ahsoka, maybe a release date for Maul, or are they going to do, hey, D23, we're announcing Skeleton Crew season 2?
Yeah, I think they'll save the announcement stuff for Celebration. I think if D23, because D23 is not just Star Wars like Celebration is, it's all the Disney properties. So if D23 for Lucasfilm specifically is Ahsoka season 2 teaser trailer, and Starfighter teaser trailer, that's plenty enough for me. I think I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, I think the 50th anniversary celebration is going to be something huge every day of it. It's just my hopes and what I think, particularly if, the story reporting that's been coming out about, we've talked about it, their release plans in the next coming years. It's going to be a lot of stuff to announce if that's true. I do think it would be interesting, like considering they have a couple of pretty big trailers to get to at D23 if they're going to do it. If they did announce a new project, I could see it being like a Tales that comes out very quickly, or something like I don't like. What would you think if they announced a new project that you weren't expecting, but it was at D23 and not at Celebration? Like what?
True.
What? Like what would you think of that? Because I know, so trailer for Visions today, the new Ninth Jedi. Tomorrow. I know there's some of us who like it, some of us who don't, and that's fine. But I think we can all agree that that's sort of like a secondary or like third level Star Wars thing that, like, if it gets announced, we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. So what like level would a D23 announcement be in the preemptive, you know what I mean? Like the preemptive phase of the big announcements that we're expecting from a Star Wars Celebration.
I would love a Tales. I mean, Tales to end the year would be great. If they announced a Tales that was coming out in like October or November, that would be perfect. Or even something like Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy or something. But yeah, I have no idea.
I think it would be an anime if they were going to do, or an animation, not an anime. I think if D23 was going to announce a new one, I don't think it would be Kenobi season 2. I don't think it's going to be Skeleton Crew season 2. It could be hey, we got a Tales coming out, and maybe that's it. But like I said, I think also if they drop a Starfighter teaser and an Ahsoka trailer, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, and those
I can wait until next year it's still in April. If it was in November, it might be different. But I mean, April's pretty much the beginning of the year for the most part. I mean, it's the first quarter. We're going right into, A New Hope getting dropped in February, Ahsoka at some point, either Ahsoka or Maul, I think, at some point, and then Celebration, which is, going to be awesome.
And, as big of an announcement, or as big as an announcement at this point would be seeing one of those teasers with an actual date, right? Like,
oh yeah.
That I think it counts as an announcement for something. Like if we see something about Ahsoka and it's like April 3rd, or whatever, and that'd be big.
Yeah, it will sadly likely only say spring of 2027, but yes, the way I look at it though is like looking at this year, we had Maul Shadow Lord. It carried us until the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which didn't really take too long because there was only a couple weeks between projects. But we're still on this Mandalorian and Grogu sort of high, coming down from the wave of that. And now we're about to get this the Ninth Jedi trailer. And if we're getting a trailer for the Ninth Jedi, that means it's probably coming out within the month. Let's be honest. So it's probably going to come out August-ish. And then we're on that high of that for August. And then at the end of August, we get Zero Company, the video game. So then we're on that high. And then we get to October, which is Galactic Racer, the multiplayer racing game. So then we're on that high. The thing that I'm looking for is November, December, because I think by January and February, we're getting the 50th anniversary of A New Hope. We're getting Ahsoka season 2. Like 2027 is perfectly fine. I think the little gap that I'm looking at that might be filled with like a Tales or something would be that November, December area. Because if you look at the rest of the year, we got maybe Visions in July, if not August, then video game in August, video game in October, and there's just that 2-month gap right there that takes you to 2027.
There's also in this December would be the 10-year anniversary of Rogue One. It's kind of crazy to think about. I don't know if they'll do anything for that.
Re-release?
Yeah.
I'd go watch that in the theaters.
Oh, yeah. Because, it might be a little weird to do it, say, like last year for Force Awakens, because maybe that means you'd have to do all of them each time. But Rogue One's on its own, man. You could re-release that whenever, So that could be something they tie into Celebrate. I guess it'd be past in Celebration, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
But I absolutely think I think somebody was saying that. Yeah, I think we'll get at least one trailer, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with D23, do they show them there and then that's it? Or is that the same type of thing where we probably won't get to see it, or we'll have to see somebody that possibly recorded it, or will it come out eventually with D23? Do you guys remember?
Well, it depends. It fully depends. Some trailers that have been shown at D23 have just been shown to the people there, and then some are released publicly. I think you'll either go 2 for 2 and they'll both be released publicly, or at least one will. So either way, you're going to get one, more likely Starfighter than Ahsoka Season 2, even though Starfighter will probably come out after. It's a movie, and they're probably going to try and start promoting it sooner. But I hope they're both released publicly. Either way, I think it will get leaked out online. When they did a Mandalorian and Grogu one at D23, like a year and a half before the movie came out, that got leaked online. So yeah, I assume that they'll both be released publicly, but if not, I'm sure we'll have access to them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think our first look at live action Ahsoka was either from like leaked D23 footage of people getting shown like a teaser, or from leaked Celebration footage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was D23 or not, but I agree. I think they're gonna do a bigger Starfighter push than they are Ahsoka, which means they got to start getting stuff out if they want to do like the Force Awakens pacing, Rogue One pacing, like that sort of thing, marketing wise. So oddly enough, like the Ahsoka trail, we might not get like a full Ahsoka teaser, but we might get like a big first trailer like a few months in advance.
Yeah.
Whereas Starfighter, we get like a theatrical teaser, which is what are those usually, like a minute 45, something like that.
Somebody brought up in the chat. Well, now it's gone. It said something like, "Didn't we already get a trailer?" Could you pull that up? I don't see it anymore.
Oh yeah, we already released this one here.
Yeah, didn't we already get a trailer for Ahsoka Season 2 and no details were leaked about it? Yes and no. Details were definitely leaked out about it, but it was in early May at something called Disney Upfront, I think, and I pulled it up over here. It said, so the footage was overall very short but sweet. Shot of Sabine reverse gripping her lightsaber, like Ahsoka, while using her flamethrower from her gauntlet. A lot of Hayden as Anakin in a new costume. Not sure if it's a Force Ghost. At least it wasn't a Force Ghost visibly, but the VFX shots may not be finished yet, or it's an entirely new costume. Epic space battle shown, lightsaber combat. There was a lightsaber that has not been seen, or is something like we have not seen before on screen. Lightsabers of all shapes and flavors, and Ezra was in the teaser too. So no footage was leaked about it, but we got that entire description that was very quick and short and had all those different flashes of different characters with lightsabers and Anakin and all that. So that was just a very short teaser shown at the people in attendance at Disney Upfront when they actually announced that it was being delayed. Like that was the day that they were like, this is being pushed back to 2027. And they showed them that footage. So it was very much like the D23, where the people got to see very, very early on footage from The Mandalorian and Grogu, because they had just started filming that. And so that's sort of what that was about. When it comes to the D23, we will most likely get it publicly, but if not, there'll be a very long description or leaked footage.
Yeah, something will get leaked out, so we have a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah.
Something else that I thought was interesting this week that I saw, that Darth Maul's arc is pretty relevant and could be very comparable to Anakin's. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I mean, to an extent it is, I suppose.
Now that we're seeing that whole thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like the reverse Anakin's, where Anakin gets sort of taken away by the Jedi, and Maul gets taken away by the Sith. So it's similar, but very different, I guess, in a way. But the two both get their legs chopped off. Yeah, honestly, very, very similar.
But even in their life arc, and because we know where Maul goes, but we know what's happened for now we're getting a little bit more backstory for him, when we see him in the puddles and see some flashbacks and stuff like that, where we see him, and it's almost, I guess it's not reverse, but he gets to that spot with Palpatine, and then gets killed, but then he comes back again. But that arc as well is a whole different thing going on, and how he comes sort of back to power again. And then we see what happens when he, gets obsessed with Obi-Wan and trying to find Obi-Wan. But I thought that was neat. Nick, what do you think about that?
I definitely see a lot of like purposeful similarities. I think there was I don't know if this like came from George himself, but like, the creation of Darth Maul was a rage thing of like what Anakin would experience, like foreshadowing. Then you have Dooku's the fallen Jedi, and Grievous is the, cyborg abomination sort of thing, that are all like versions of what Anakin's issues are eventually as Vader. I don't know if George Lucas said that or if someone said that about George Lucas, but I think like the similarities with Anakin and Maul are more so like Maul is sort of the embodiment of one of Anakin's issues, which is like passion and rage, right? Like, and they're both obsessed with Obi-Wan. Like, you could find all kinds of similarities I think are really valid. I think it's important to note that like Maul never gets over it. And like the biggest thing Anakin's ever done in his life is getting over it and being redeemed. Yeah. So that'd be a big one, at least for like the whole arc. And but they're both like in their own ways total just like pawns to the bad guy,
Can we bring up Wildcard's last message here? I remember recently they actually was theater release of The Force Awakens, but nobody went to see it because Revenge of the Sith, what does an actual Star Wars movie, got all the seats. I don't remember The Force Awakens being re-released for the 10-year anniversary.
That's because it wasn't.
I'm gonna say. And if it was, it would have been 6 months after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
But no, that's funny.
Way to go.
He speaks as if that's not the Star Wars movie that's made the most money. No, you're absolutely right. There was a reason. Again, I can't think of it either if George Lucas said it or not, but it's definitely on purpose that the first villain in Phantom Menace, the next villain in Attack of the Clones, the next villain in Revenge of the Sith are all teasing or teeing up Vader and Anakin's inevitable fall in all different ways, which is genius. I mean, talk about great writing. But, the prequels had really bad writing, of course. Yes, but now that you mention it, there's a lot of similarities between Anakin and Maul. A lot. Yeah. And that's clearly on purpose.
I think one of the tougher things with Maul, especially maybe with people who are like just now getting into him, is we kind of have like two different eras of people who experience Maul. Like Derek, for example, I wish Derek was here tonight because Derek has read all of the old Maul stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like loves him even more because of that, which is makes him he's a little different in, former novels and comics than he is when we see him after, because in that stuff, it's prior to the Phantom Menace and stuff we're getting since when did he come back? 2011, 2012 in the Clone Wars. Now we get like the continuation. So like, I would argue that Maul pre-Phantom Menace and all those stories is not that similar to Anakin, but now we're getting new context. And of course, now it's considered kind of like the canon thing. It's kind of what I was hoping for. That was the one thing, if there's anything I wished more for in Shadow Lord, was maybe a little more about him prior, which maybe we get in seasons 2, 3, whatever. But I do think there are some purposeful similarities, but Maul is a little like, I don't know, like Anakin and Obi-Wan being arch nemesis, like makes sense. It's like peanut butter and jelly, right?
Yeah.
But like Maul is not on Obi-Wan's radar, but he's like everything to Maul. You know what I'm saying? It's like when your favorite. It's like how the Memphis Grizzlies think that they're the Minnesota Timberwolves rival still. You know, we don't even think about you at all. So like, and that's like Maul to Kenobi. So he's an interesting, like kind of sad, but like very, very, very deadly character, you know, in which like Anakin said, but in a probably like much heavier way, much more important way. Not that Maul's not important, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
well, and my thing is we see him again, and I think we will get a few more of the flashbacks with him, but how he sort of started out and then became powerful with Palpatine, thought he was dead, comes back, becomes the leader of, you know, the underworld, Mandalore, and then the Crimson Dawn, and all of these things, and again loses his mother, loses his father, you know, all these different things, and you know we see where we know where he's going to go, and eventually he does, you know, lose his mind and he's just you know obsessed with Kenobi. But I think I just thought that was interesting that it's very similar, the arcs that they have, and then, not that it's more important than Vader's, but I think it's very, very similar in the way and probably the way that Palpatine picked both of them, because he knew he was able to manipulate the two of them in different ways, but because of their past or what they had going on in their life at that time. And Palpatine was able to take the two of them and manipulate him the way that he did.
if you think about it, like you guys were saying, like both taken for whatever purposes, both sort of by a product of their time, kind of fastened into like human weapons, right? Like Anakin's thrown into having to grow up through a war as a late teenager. Same as Ahsoka. Maul is basically a killing machine for Sidious. They both experience like traumatic events. They both have real bad, rage and believing that they're entitled to more power issues. They both, suffer pretty devastating defeats to Obi-Wan and are pissed about it. Let it ruin the rest of their lives. They've both lost something that they consider to be family many times over. There are a lot of similarities there, and it just kind of works differently for each of them, like you're saying, Ron. I think you could maybe draw similar ones. We could do this all day with like Dooku too. Like there are some similarities to Dooku. And I think Dooku is who Anakin thought he was. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Anakin's like thinks he's like young guy who thinks he's into politics, whereas like Dooku's the old guy who's like really into it and like really knows what he's talking about and actually left and did something about it, sort of thing. Dooku's like star of the show, but it took him like his whole life. Anakin's star of the show, and he's like 22. So I think there's like, they're both very entitled at times, but
just a couple fun theories as we go through the next few months, trying to predict different things. And I think hopefully with D3 coming out, we'll get some more stuff that we can work with. And then as we go through the rest of the year, we'll get some more things to talk about, because it's that lull time, and we get the leaks, we get the different things here and there, and the theories that we can all do our headcanon about and try to figure things out. But it's interesting to see as these leaks come out and what we're going to talk about next, and why these characters, maybe now this week this character might be going on a different path. And I think that's what's going to be the cool part when Ahsoka does come out, because I think Ahsoka right now is the key to pretty much everything for the future of what's going on. And that's the reason why I think, just sort of to go back to sort of where we started, is that's why it got pushed back. And I think that that's going to answer a lot of questions, but also leave some really cool questions on the table that we're going to get in future projects. which will be good. Not that we'll see anything like that in Maul, but I think as we continue and get on to Celebration, that's when we're going to know a little bit more about what's coming out that will help us answer some of these questions for things that are going on.
Yeah.
So, anything else, Mike, on your end that you can think of?
Well, other than obviously the 9th Jedi trailer coming out tomorrow,
Right.
which will be very cool for a lot of people who really like the Vision stuff. I'm excited to see it anyway, just because they made a whole series based off of this one episode. So that's there must be a story that they want to tell there. So I'm very intrigued to see that. Plus, it may not be canon, but it's still a cool story nonetheless, and it's probably coming out within the next month or two. So that'll be very interesting as well. In terms of other leaks and stuff, we talked about the Rey stuff, whether she'll appear or not in Starfighter. Still hasn't really been said one way or another, but I assume that there will likely be a Rey type. There was a Daisy Ridley posted a video on her, or somebody posted a video of Daisy Ridley on their Instagram story, and she's working out at the gym with like a personal trainer or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my God, she's getting in shape to play Rey again." So there's a lot of speculation going on there because obviously the Rey movie was announced 3 years ago, and who knows what movie's going to come out in 2028. Because after 2027, all bets are off. But she's obviously going to play a role in something, whatever the Simon Kinberg next saga that we've been talking about now all stream. It's going to involve Rey. She probably won't be the main character, but she'll be a character. So there's that.
So I got a question for you guys. Speaking of that, so speaking of that and what Max Rebo just said here, stay with me because it'll come full circle. But what you said about the Rey movie that got announced 3 years ago, I have submitted to the podcast before that I think that was a knee-jerk reaction to the hunt for Ben Solo being like red lit at the last second and needing to announce something at D23.
Yeah,
that's my theory. And being like, well, shoot, we got to say something. So we'll say we're working on a Rey movie or whatever. And maybe they've disintegrated the hunt for Ben Solo and made other plans with pieces of that. Who knows? Maybe it's still just sitting on the shelf. Who knows? But Max Rebo brought up that point about Rangers of the New Republic. You know, I don't remember them all, but I know this is one of them. There are a lot of projects that, you know, circa 5 years ago, we like thought were coming that are kind of like not, including this one. So my question for you guys is like, do you see any of those projects, particularly ones like that are like Mandoverse type projects? Like how many of those do you think we have left? Or what, you know, I foresee maybe like a couple of movies, especially if Dave Filoni's big movie that they're teasing has to do with the Thrawn Heir to the Empire thing. Like how many more projects is a Rangers of the New Republic a necessary thing for like Mandoverse stuff? Or are we kind of getting what that was going to be through Mando season 3 and Mando and Grogu, like that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to get a lot more Mandoverse shows. The latest we heard was that the majority, if not all, of the live action shows for Star Wars moving forward will be in the New Republic era or the Mandoverse. So I think a lot like the Ahsoka season, Ahsoka in general, the show, and Book of Boba Fett both came off of the branches of the Mandalorian. So it's almost as if, and Skeleton Crew kind of came out of nowhere, but still, I think that the next Mandoverse story could be a branch off of Ahsoka. Like, I think Ahsoka ends after 2 seasons. I think we won't see Ahsoka for a long time, whatever happens at the end there. And the next show will be a branch off of that. And it could be like a Rangers of the New Republic show, but instead of whatever they thought the Rangers were going to be, now it's like Zeb, Ezra, and Rod of the Hutt or something crazy like that. Like, we don't know. But it could be a branch off of that. Skeleton Crew season 2, Book of Boba Fett season 2 are obviously on the table as well. But in terms of like new titles, we could get anything at this point. We got Skeleton Crew, and we had no idea what that was going to be.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah,
And yes, Luke Skywalker Jedi Academy show would be great too. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's so much talk about that right now, which whether they are listening or watch this, or not this, but just what's going on in the Star Wars universe now, I think it would be cool for them to, to bring something like that to fruition, which would be pretty awesome. Especially in an animated series where they could do, pretty much anything that they wanted to do, and bring in characters that, we might not see in live action, and still be able to tell that story, the Kylo story and everything else that goes along with that, which would be pretty awesome. Before it dies off and we don't get to see anything else. But like you were just saying, Nick, some of this new stuff that's coming out, we could get that Solo movie, that Hunt for Ben Solo type of movie at some point too, which could still tie into all of this as well, and also answer some questions that we still have from the sequels. So I think that's a definite possibility that's going to be one of the ones that possibly could get announced during Star Wars Celebration, which I think that could be one of the biggest, first of all, surprises, but also the biggest reaction when you're in that main room, and Nick knows what I'm talking about, and they're doing announcements and stuff like that. But for them to come out and somebody say, whether it's Dave or whoever, that the Hunt for Ben Solo movie is a go, I mean, that place would just erupt.
Yeah,
which would be pretty awesome, because there's been so much hype about it.
Yeah, I do like the idea that, because we were talking about how many seasons will Maul Shadowlord go earlier this stream, but like, if it does only go for 3 seasons, we're assuming that it even gets a 3rd season. What if it only goes for 2? But either way, let's say it goes for 3. It could be over by 2028. If it goes 2027 season 2, 2028 season 3, that means beyond that, we're going to need a new animated show. And obviously Luke Skywalker is the Academy is the most likely one.
Yeah. And when you have some of these tales that could come out and introduce us to new characters, or some past, some flashbacks and different things like they did with Cad Bane. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if that comes to fruition with anything. And Ahsoka, Asajj, because I don't think we've seen. I think we're going to see her come to live action. Absolutely.
I really hope so.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, like, if we're all thinking a Tales comes before next year, or between basically like now and the first round of 2027 stuff, right? Tales is always informing us of something. And what's interesting is, like, Tales of the Underworld, or was that the last one with Cad Bane and Asajj?
Yes.
Tales of the Underworld?
Last year, yeah.
Like, if anything, the Cad Bane one just kind of like wrapped up, having just seen him a couple of years ago in Book of Boba Fett. But the Asajj Ventress one seems like perfectly wide open, and right off the heels of her being in the Bad Batch. Right. Yeah. So seeing another, like, whoever they choose for Tales, it always means something that they've worked on or like had an interest in, and leaves open. And I think it would be, that is one thing, even more than like us guessing about trailers, would be something to read into that we could be right about. Because like in the last several of them, have had that. Now the problem is sometimes they come out after the important thing, right? But
yeah, I just remember, like, earlier this year, before Maul Shadowlord, before the Mandalorian Grogu, there was 2 big leaks that came out that Anakin Skywalker would be in 3 upcoming projects, and somebody else responded to that and said 2 of them will be animated. And then somebody else said, a very, very reliable leaker said that Luke Skywalker will be in a Tales of series. And I don't think they said when, but still, like, that could be this year.
Mhm.
And he might not be the main character of that series, but he'll be in it, and that means it takes place at least beyond the original trilogy. So, yeah, something like that would be great.
Now, do you think that counts, that Vader being in Shadow Lord counts as an Anakin animated appearance?
It might have been. It might,
a red
but I don't
herring?
know. It could be. I mean, Anakin's gone. I am what
Yeah.
remains. So we don't know.
Well, and that's again, it's all point of view, because like I'm going to bring up your keep 10, get rid of 10 or 5 or whatever. Yeah, keep 5, take 5, or get rid of 5. But Ahsoka pops up, and I know she's one of your favorite characters, but again, she's not a Jedi, so you can't keep her on that side, and that's the hard part with it. So again, it's it's a certain point of view, because again, if you wanted to, you could put her on that side while she was a Jedi, because she did a great job as a Jedi, and that's the part where I think you can like the sequels, you can like the prequels, you can not like them, or you can have a different opinion on them. Excuse me, and what you think about them. But those are the different things which I think are fun when we're talking about these things, because we can all have different opinions on characters or movies or anything else. And that was sort of my thing. It was like I would have kept her at first, but then as you started to talk, I was like, oh yeah, that's true. She's not a Jedi. She's not but again, she had the time that she was a Jedi, she was awesome, and she learned so much in that time. So you could keep her in that as well. So I thought that was a cool point of view in reference to that, and it goes along with everything else that we have, coming up now, and as we go into the future, and what Star Wars brings us is, these new characters and what they're going to do with them. So, and yeah, like you were saying before, the spin-off of Ahsoka, what is that going to be? I think you're right. You're going to see definitely Ezra and Jason.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully Chopper. I think Chopper could be the next sort of R2, where he's hanging out with all the main characters again, as we go along in this new, hopefully, trilogy of movies, and that will be cool. But I don't think we will see Baylan or Ahsoka after this. So we didn't get to getting mic'd tonight, but we did talk about a bunch of people. But we have to do this as well. Of course, before we sign off, we have to have Grogu up there saluting us. It is still in the theaters, so I'd like to go see it one more time before it gets out of the theaters. I look forward to having it on at home too, which will be sort of cool. But I think it'll probably be another. What do you think? By the time Spider-Man comes out, you think they'll take it out, or will it go past that?
I don't know. Well, I saw something recently. Let me see if I can find it really quick about Devil Wears Prada, and like its sort of release onto Disney Plus and its schedule or something. Oh yeah. So Devil Wears Prada came out on May 1st. So it's around the time of Mandalorian Grogu. On June 30th, so yesterday, you are able to rent or buy it on digital.
Okay.
Physical release is July 28th, and then July 29th is Hulu plus Disney Plus. So you could see The Mandalorian and Grogu on Disney Plus by late August, maybe early September.
Yeah, if you want to pay for it again.
Well, no, I'm talking like on Disney Plus. You could get it by then.
Oh, okay.
That could be their. We're saying there might be a lull from like November to January. That might be something they do. I think Derek made a good point the other night, like maybe a week or two ago, that the purpose of this movie could have just been to beef Disney Plus up, in which case they would behave as if it were a whole other release when it comes to Disney Plus. So that could be like a big sort of like streaming event for them if they play it right, especially if they announce it in a way on like D23 that there's like something about it. And then good way to like throw a Tails in with it, to be like, use this also.
Have that too. Well, they could do so much with like when they did a really cool thing that I didn't get to do. Maybe I'll still go do it. But you can download this app when you go to the theater and put headphones in. And as you watch the movie, it like syncs to your movie. As you watch the movie, in your ear, Jon Favreau is like telling you the making of the movie, like what like cool things about the movie. And that stuff can be added on Disney Plus easy. Like the extras feature or whatever, or the behind the scenes stuff, like the Mandalorian gallery episodes. Like you could add stuff like that while you put it on Disney Plus to make it a little extra bonus stuff to watch. Because I'm sure a lot of us would do that if that was the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's just it. A lot of people are going to get, they're going to go back and put Disney Plus back in their, all their streaming services so they can watch this, whether it's got the good reviews or the bad reviews or whatever. People are still going to watch it because they didn't want to go to the theater, but they'll go ahead and pay for the month or whatever because there's a couple more movies coming out.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to get it because of, the Mandalorian and Grogu. So
I'm just going to throw out there for no one in particular that Disney makes an estimated $990 million to $1.03 billion per month from Disney Plus alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
They're looking to capitalize on putting whatever streaming content they can on there, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big streaming shows this year. We already had Daredevil season 2. Obviously, Maul Shadow Lord sat at number 1 for the whole run of the series. But later on in the year, I think there's a Visions. Visions. Obviously, yes, we're getting a trailer for tomorrow. But a actual MCU Vision, the superhero Vision show coming out in the fall too. So Disney Plus, as any streaming service does, tries to have content come out throughout the course of the year so that people stay tuned in. Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate everybody being here. I know we were a little low tonight, but the World Cup is on, so I know people were probably watching that as well, which is sort of cool. It's I've stayed sort of watched it or at least had it on in the living room.
The US
is
playing.
Yeah, they're playing tonight, so that's why I was like,
we're up 2-0, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
nice. That's cool. That's awesome. Sorry, hopefully nobody was recording it and hoping to watch it afterwards.
Oh, whoops.
It's not over yet.
They lost. They lost.
Yeah, 86 minutes, so anything can happen.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks everybody else on the podcast. Thanks for all of your chats. I appreciate you guys coming in here. And even other people coming in and making conversation in here. We appreciate it. So everybody has their own opinion of Star Wars. We all love it, and we'll continue to talk about it and praise it. So it is what it is. So y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Star Wars Jedi Chat. May the Force be with you. See y'all.